everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Making Your Savings Work Harder. My name's Rachel, and I'm the Head of Business Development and Marketing here at Plain Saver Credit Union. I've worked in the sector since 2008, and I'm very passionate about helping people build better money habits. Before we begin this webinar, this is a quick disclaimer. This webinar is for information purposes only. Neither I nor Plain Saver Credit Union are regulated or authorised to provide financial advice. So everything we're talking about today is for general information only. It's not tailored to anyone's specific individual circumstances. So if you are looking for advice that's specific to you and your situation, please speak to a qualified financial advisor. Okay, disclaimer over. So today, we'll explore why savings matter, different types of savings accounts, and how to match your savings goals up to the right product. We'll also do a practical smart activity together to help you start planning with confidence. So hopefully you can all see this here up on the screen. This is what we're going to cover in the next hour. So if at any point you have a question, feel free to drop it into the chat. We'll cover as many questions as we can at the end during the live Q&A. So let's dive in. So the first thing that we're looking at is why savings matters. So why is savings so important? So firstly, savings build financial resilience. And what that actually means is being able to cope with unexpected events, from broken appliances to job changes. One example that we've had quite recently is we had a member whose boiler broke down unexpectedly. As we all know, that's not very cheap, but they'd been saving up from the payroll, and that covered the cost of the boiler, which meant no stress, no credit card panic, and that's basically financial resilience in action. But it's not just about emergencies. So saving also helps you to create opportunities. So that might be a holiday, it might be education, or it might be saving up for a new car or your first home. But quite often, the biggest barrier is thinking that we need to save big chunks of money, when in reality, small, consistent savings build money confidence and develop really powerful habits. So just for the audience here that's live, drop an emoji in the chat or put your hand up if you've ever felt that saving was too hard or maybe just not worth it for small amounts. If you do feel that, you're not alone. So the next thing is common money challenges that people face. So many of us face challenges when it comes to saving. There's some examples you hear that you can see here on the screen. I don't have enough money to save. But remember, even £5 a week is over £250 a year, which could equate to perhaps not a new boiler, but a new appliance in your kitchen. My savings don't grow. So that might be because they're sitting in low interest accounts, maybe. Or I don't know where to start. So hopefully what we're going to cover over the next few slides will help you with that. If any of you resonate with any of these, feel free to pop a number 1 for I don't have enough money to save, a number 2 for my savings don't grow, or a number 3 for I don't know which account to choose. Cool. Okay, so now let's take a look at the range of savings account that's available to us here in the UK. So the UK savings landscape can feel a little bit like an alphabet soup. ISAs, AERs, fixed terms, all of that. We're going to try and unpack this. So what we're going to start with is, what is an ISA? Okay, so an ISA, ISA, is an individual savings account. You probably see it, a lot in adverts, or as you walk past your local branch of bank or building society. But what makes it so special? The big thing with an ISA is that you do not pay tax on the interest or gains up to your annual allowance, which for this tax year is currently £20,000. There are also different types of ISAs, so I'm just going to roughly explain what each of those look like. So a cash ISA, it acts like a normal regular savings account, but obviously your interest or gains is tax-free. Then a stocks and shares ISA is where the provider would invest your money into the market. What you would get in return for that is potentially higher rate of interest, but your capital is at risk, right? It's being traded on a market. The next one is a lifetime ISA or LISA. This one is designed specifically for 18 to 39-year-olds. You can save up to £4,000 a year and get a 25% government bonus. Small catch, it can only be used to buy your first home or to go towards retirement, hence lifetime. And then the junior ISA kind of does what it says on the tin. So this is for children under the age of 18. Parents and guardians can save up to £9,000 per tax year on their behalf, but the funds cannot be accessed by the parent or guardian. It can only be taken out by the child when they turn 18. The next account we're going to go over is a notice account. So a notice account is a savings account where you agree to give a certain amount of notice. So it could be, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days before withdrawing your money. And you might think, well, why would I want to do that? Good question. Quite often they'll offer better rates than any instant access account. And also the delay might be helpful if you are a bit of an impulse spender. You have to give that notice period, so perhaps you might change your mind on what you're about to splurge on. But it's a really nice middle ground between flexibility and that savings discipline. The next one is a fixed term account. Okay, so a fixed term account means that you're going to lock your money away for a set period of time, often 6 months, a year, sometimes more. But you can't access that money until the term ends. In return for that, the provider would normally offer a higher rate of return than they would on any instant access account. It's also really good if you are saving for a specific date, like a specific goal. So that could be a wedding or a car. And if you know that you are the sort of person that has the tendency to dip into instant access accounts, this could be a better choice. And then lastly, prize-linked savings accounts. So the purpose of a prize-linked savings account is that rather than an interest, you would gain entries into some sort of draw. And so a really, really good example of this are the premium bonds offered by NS&I. So in that instance, every pound you save gives you a chance to win up to £1 million of tax-free money. But there's obviously no guaranteed returns because it's a prize draw. Similarly to that, there are 16 credit unions across the UK who run something called a Prize Saver. PlainSaver is one of the credit unions that offers this. It's a very similar concept. The prizes are a little bit smaller, so it's up to £5,000 that you could win every month. And some of the participating credit unions will also pay dividend on top of that. So it's just like savings, but a little bit more fun. What I will say is this might not be the best option to put your core savings in wherever you're relying on growth. Again, if anyone's got any questions, just pop them through into the chat. So the next thing we're looking at is understanding the fine print. Like I said at the beginning, it can feel a little bit like an alphabet soup. So let's just run through some of the jargon that you might see. So AER. AER is the annual equivalent rate. So this tells you how much interest you're going to earn in a year, but it also takes into account compounding interest, which is interest on top of your interest. So you should think of AER as an annual growth snapshot, and it lets you compare apples to apples rather than apples to oranges from one account to another. The next term that you might see is AIR, which is annual interest rate. This is a much simpler figure and does not always include compounding. That's why AER is better for comparing accounts. The next one is dividends. So specifically in credit unions, instead of an interest, you might earn an annual dividend. What a dividend is a share of the profit. It's usually agreed at an AGM. Sometimes credit unions might provide a projected dividend, which is a rate that they expect to be able to pay at the end of the year, But the most important thing to note here is that it can vary from year to year. And the next one is fixed rate. So a fixed rate is fairly straightforward in that the interest rate stays exactly the same for the whole term of your savings. So if it's a 6 months term, if it's a 12 months term, that's what the rate will be. Obviously, it's an AER, annual equivalent rate, so just be careful that you read terms and conditions on that. And then contrary to that is something called a variable rate. So a variable rate is one that can go up or down at any point during your savings journey. So it normally depends on market conditions, but also provider decisions. So understanding the differences between these terms is really, really key when you're starting to choose which savings account you might want. Okay, so let's talk money. A real life savings example. So let's have a look what we can realistically achieve. So imagine you were putting aside £200 a month into a savings account that earns 3% interest, AER, and is compounded monthly. Over 6 years, you would build up just under £15,756. The breakdown of that would be 14,400 of your own money, and the rest is just over £1,300 in interest. So that's a really good example of it working in your favour. Compounded interest, interest on interest. Using the same example over 1 year, you would make £37 interest. You would have saved £2,400. Whack it all the way up to 10 years, and you would have saved £24,000. And then you would have interest. You would have earned interest of £3,131, bringing your pot up to just over £27,000. So when we're looking at savings accounts, compound interest is very, very important, especially if your goal is to grow your savings. So this is a biggie, I guess. So choosing the right account for you. So a really good way to decide what account is going to work best for you is actually deciding what it is that you want to achieve. Okay. So here we're going to use the SMART method. Many people have probably heard of this. If you haven't, it's okay. So the S is specific. So what exactly are you saving for? Okay. Is it a holiday? Is it a birthday? Is it a deposit on a house? Is it a car? It needs to be specific. Okay. Measurable. So how much do you need? And by when do you need to get there, right? So that will help you work out how much you need to save each month, each week, however you get paid. And achievable. You need to be realistic. It's very, very tempting to say to yourself, oh, I'm going to save £500 a month and, I'm going to have X amount in 6 months and that's it, goal met. Be realistic. You still have to be able to cover day-to-day costs, okay? Make sure that your goal is relevant. So why does it matter to you? Emotional goals have more power. By that, I mean, do you want a new car just because all your friends have got one? Or do you want to go on a girls' trip just because you feel pressurized to go? Or do you want to save up for a house because you want that freedom of home ownership? Make sure that it's relevant to you and that it means something. You're much more likely to stick to it if it is. And then the last one is time bound. So by when do you want to achieve this? So just as an example, you want £450 for a birthday trip. It's 10 months away. And that would mean you'd have to save £45 a month. Great. Can you afford that? Okay. So I'll give everyone just a second to think about that. If you want to grab a pen or if you want to grab your phone and whack it down in the notes, go for it. I'll give you a minute or so. Cool. Okay, so now look at your SMART notes. Okay, look at what you've written down. Do you need flexibility? Would you benefit from locking it away? Would a prize account help you to stay motivated? To be honest with you, there is no perfect account for everyone, but there will be a good match for your specific goal and your specific style. You can have multiple accounts for different purposes. You might want one for holidays, you might want one for saving up for emergencies, and you might have one for longer term goals. Okay, so thank you for joining us today. And I really, really hope that this has given you a little bit of clarity and maybe a bit more confidence to explore the right savings options for you. So I'm going to throw it out to the floor now, see if anybody's got any questions. But if you'd like to learn more about PlaneSaver's savings account, I'm just going to drop a link in the chat, which will take you to our welcome pack. You can have a look through that and explore your options. So I'll give everyone a minute, see if anyone's got any questions. No, awesome, easy peasy. Right, well, thank you, everybody. If anyone does have any questions afterwards, you can email us at info@planesaver.co.uk. And remember, savings is not about being perfect, it's about being consistent. Thank you.